Let's let's take a look at this little league video.
It's probably going to be crap, honestly. It's Little League.
Don't be
Typical babies.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
I like
She
the
gives a thumbs up at the end.
I like the
did it,
little
Mom.
thumbs up at the end. Yeah, like
Did you see me? Did you see what I did? Boot scooting boogied. Taking my 360.
Love the aggressiveness. Hate the defensive play here. Just
I love the partial aggressiveness in the beginning. Just obviously, you got to sell it. Yeah, I'm stopping at first. But it's a little little skip step right there when she touches first.
Watch the first baseman's body language and like her reaction to this girl rounding first base. This first baseman is just like, no idea what's going on.
Oh, she's just gonna go. Okay, yeah, that's what she's supposed to do.
She's just standing there,
She watches her make the turn. She watches her.
Like, there's no like, you don't see like a tense up, like screaming, like there's none of that. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, all right, see you later.
It's just so funny. I wasn't one to be necessarily the one that was going to go on a walk and take two, unless I had the runner on third and it was typically a freebie. But there was one time I was on first. I was playing 10U, travel ball. I'm on first, teammates up to bat. Here I am, 3-2 count, 2 outs. See ya, taking my free bag. I start jogging because it's ball 4. I'm jogging to second, and everybody's like, second, throw it to two. I'm like, why would you do that? I'm literally already on the bag. Like, you just walked her. No, teammates count was 2-2. I just tapped right to second. And it's funny because the batter, my teammate, also just started walking down the line. And everybody, the umpires, the scorekeepers, everybody's like, oh, we had a 2-2 count. That sucks for y'all.
Looks like I got a stolen base, baby.
Exactly.
Put that one in the SB column.
Yeah, there weren't many of those. That one's funny though. It's that for me.
I mean, I've done that work in high school and in college. Whether it was intentional or not, like I've seen it happen, and everybody on the field is just like, "What?"
What?
Until the umpires
just hanging out.
Just hanging out.
Yeah, that.
Oh man.
Well, and two, like you watch the pitcher. Obviously, the pitcher messed up. You walk to the girl, then immediately throws the ball. Ball's caught. She's like, oh, crap.
Yeah, just hanging her head, having a freaking pity party.
Runners,
middle infielders.
Yeah, I'm out.
You have to believe, one, that nobody on defense has ever seen anybody do that.
Yeah, they're what, 12?
Yeah. But I mean, you also have to imagine that girl's walked a handful of other batters earlier in the game. And the defense is just like,
oh my God.
Here we go again. Turn around, kicking dirt, just like, oh my gosh. Another long inning.
The first baseman steps on the bag after she goes to second watch. She I saw that. Yeah, I'm gonna get you out right here.
I saw that. Throw it to me, and she steps on the middle of the bag.
Not even the corner.
No, like
Achilles will be ripped for sure. This
is
right down.
This is an issue in Little League baseball as well. Like, you just see poor play. Not to hate on Little League baseball and softball, but it's like glorified rec league. It is. I'm just speaking truth. except for like when you're talking about like teams from like Texas and Florida and California, like those end
Oh,
up
don't hate on
being.
my Nolansville team now.
Oh yeah, I mean, with baseball now, it's starting to become like travel teams that end up
Mm,
representing this rec league, and so
yeah.
you're starting to see better play, better quality, um, higher baseball IQs. But like this is rec league softball, and you can't tell me it's not.
Well, it all starts too with the tank top. Rocking
Yeah, those
rocking tank
phased out.
top.
Those phased out in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to Yellaball, everybody. Here with Robbie and Ashley. Today we're talking about the group of five and how their regular seasons and postseasons went last year. Um, Ashley, where do you want to start out?
Oh, let's take a look at the old AAC. Not to be confused with the ACC,
Correct.
in which
The
I've confused
A,
multiple times.
yeah. Uh, it has tricked my brain a time or two as well. The old AAC, the American Athletic Conference, where my alma mater competes. Oh, Memphis, um, who
Go
unfortunately
Tigers.
is, yeah, go Tigers, go baby, blue and gray all day. Um, yeah, unfortunately, the Tigers just are not very good or haven't been very good in years past. Maybe that'll change this year. I hope so. Okay, so last year, regular season, you got Wichita State, who finishes at the top of the pack with a 44-12 record, 16-2 in conference. And they just pull a UCLA and just crap the bed and get
Yeah.
upset by Tulsa in the conference tournament.
Yeah, Tulsa kind of came out of nowhere, I guess, for him and just put him into shock. This is what you said, UCLA all over again.
Yeah, I
Solid,
mean,
solid season. And then it's like, nah.
yeah, like and we look at their postseason, like their postseason was terrible considering they're a group of five team, they're a smaller team from a smaller conference. But I mean, like to do so well in the regular season, to just be like, nah, we're not going to win our conference tournament, not even going to make it to the conference finals, and lose to like almost the worst team in the conference. That's crazy.
Well, and two, you go back and look how far, if we'll get to it on Tulsa, but if you just go back and look at their season in whole and compare it to Wichita State also hung with Power Five schools in other games.
Yeah. Yeah. They were a really good ball club last year. Whereas you look at Tulsa they weren't even above 500.
Mm-mm.
In conference, they were right at 500. And I mean, granted, that's not to say that Tulsa doesn't have good athletes. I'm sure they do. Obviously, they have good enough athletes to beat a really good Wichita State team and compete with Central Florida in the championship. But I mean, I'm I don't know what the injury status was for Wichita State's team or Tulsa's team throughout the regular season. I don't know any of that, but like you just expect way more from a 40-plus win team when they're facing a team who could barely get over 20 wins.
Right. Because 40 plus is tough feat. Like, and then
Yeah.
to just go on and, disappointing for sure.
Yeah. And I know some teams are some analysts would say that some teams are built more for tournament style play than they are for long term marathon type season play, but good teams win. I don't.
Yeah, bottom line.
Bottom line is good teams win. It's the same thing with the MLB postseason now, and all four. What is it? Four teams that won 100+ games this year throughout the regular season. They all got
Booted.
put out. They went like 1-13 in postseason play. Like good teams win. That's what it comes down to. Wichita State just kind of crapped the bed and proved that they were not as good as what their record said that they were. Then you have Central Florida finishing second in the conference with another 40-win season. They go 40-21, 15-3 in conference. And they actually come through and win the conference tournament, which is no surprise to me. I'm sure it's not a surprise to you either. UCF has been a top. They've been a top program for a while. That in the group of five, like they're not just a top group of five program. They're just a top program.
Right.
Like
I think, and I could be wrong here, so I might have to double check myself here in a second. But I'm pretty positive that might have been UCF's fourth consecutive conference championship appearance. I'm
that's impressive.
pretty positive in that. Yeah,
I
super
wouldn't
impressive.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, they've been a top program for a while now. They've established themselves as just a solid program year in and year out. They're able to compete with the SEC and the ACC. Like they're just really good, and honestly surprised that they didn't finish the regular season in first place. But not surprised that they won the conference tournament and then went on to compete in a really tough regional.
Right.
Excuse me. You got South Florida finishing third in the conference. Not a super impressive record, but not abysmal. Definitely no Tulsa. But they go 32-24 in the year, 10-7 in conference, and they lose to Central Florida in the semis, which that's to be expected. You're going up against a really good Central Florida team. I mean, just kind of tough to compete with them. And then you got Tulsa, who I guess within the conference, like they were the fourth best team, and the AAC only takes the top four for the conference tournament. So I'm trying to think who else is in the American. Obviously, Memphis is in there, and they didn't even make conference tournament. Who else is in the American?
Is that
Navy,
lit? No.
Navy's in the American, but I don't even know if they have a
I don't think they have
softball team.
I don't think they. I don't. Feeling like
We
they
may be
don't.
misspeaking on that. If Navy has a softball team, sorry,
Apologies.
ladies.
Apologies.
please
Straightforward.
comment and let us know that you are there and you're ready to compete, so we can talk about you. Who else? Who else is? Are you looking?
East Carolina.
Yeah, ECU. Yeah, ECU didn't make conference tournament.
Correct. Let's see. ECU, Houston.
Yeah, Houston will not be in the American this year. Houston's in the Big 12 now.
Yeah, a little concerning, but that's besides the point. That's it. That it's just Wichita State, Central Florida, South Florida, Tulsa, and then those three. Well, Memphis being the other one.
Right. Okay. So I mean, yeah, you don't want to just put three teams in the conference tournament and give the one seed a bye, because that wouldn't make a whole bunch of sense. So you put four in there and just have everybody kind of duke it out. I think they do a double elimination though, since they only do a top four.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you got 1 through 4. You go 1 and 4 matchup in the first round, 2 and 3 matchup in the second round, and then you got to go all the way through the losers bracket to get to the championship. So good on Tulsa for making it to the championship, but I just don't, I don't understand. I don't understand
Yeah,
how
I
Wichita
don't.
State just couldn't close out a game like that.
And then Tulsa gets to the conference championship, which again is against UCF. And UCF is just like, just absolutely smacking them around.
Right.
5 inning conference championship game. 5 innings. Didn't even go the full 7. And I'm
Yeah.
willing to put my money, which is Wichita State would have given UCF a run for their money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree with that. But I mean, when you don't show up to play, like
That's what happens.
softball is one of those games where it's not like football. It's not the most physical team. It's going to be who's at their best on that day. And I mean, Tulsa was better.
They
And
played.
yeah, I mean, Wichita State probably came out flat and expected to just go up on top of Tulsa to begin with, and Tulsa just lay down and roll over and take the L, and Tulsa didn't do that. They kept competing, kept grinding, and they come away with the win to get to the championship. And then Central Florida just did what Central Florida always does to mediocre teams and just beat them in the ground.
Oh yeah,
like they were supposed to do. So I mean, with that being said, you move to the postseason. Wichita State, they get even though they didn't win their conference tournament, they won the regular season tournaments. They got a bid into the Stillwater Regional. I don't know. Is that considered an at-large bid, or is it because they won regular season they got an automatic bid?
I'm not 100% sure. I feel like it's because they won regular season.
Yeah, I feel like Group of 5 teams get an automatic bid for the regular season and an automatic bid for the conference tournament.
Yeah.
And if that happens to be one team, then so be it. And the other teams are just at-large bids at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, Wichita State and Central Florida both make the NCAA tournament. Wichita State goes to Stillwater. They go 1-2 in that regional. Do you know who they got put out by? I don't remember.
Yeah. So they went 1-2, and they played Nebraska. They played Nebraska first. That's where they got their one win. Close game, 6-5 game.
Interesting, because Nebraska was pretty solid last year. They were hitting some dingers last year. So for Wichita State to beat them, that's pretty
Where
solid.
did you go wrong against Tulsa? Right.
Yeah, for real.
Then they take their first loss against Oklahoma State. To be expected.
Yeah. Right.
Strong Oklahoma State team. And then they turn around and have to play Nebraska again.
And they lose this time.
Yeah, 9 innings. 9-inning game, 8-9. I think it was like 12 hits to 13 hits, no errors, just dogfight, which is awesome.
They were the 3 seed, right?
Wichita State?
Yeah.
I think so.
In that regional?
Yeah, I think so.
They had to have been, right? Nebraska would have been the 2 seed.
Mm-hmm. Oklahoma State would have been the 1 seed.
Yeah.
And who was the 4th team in that regional?
Do you have it pulled up right now?
No, but I can. I'll race you.
Yeah. Wichita State was the 2 seed. Or no, the 3 seed. Nebraska was the 2 seed. Yeah, they were the 3 seed, right?
Yeah.
UMBC was the 4 seed. Okay. Yeah,
okay.
That makes sense.
We're good. We're there.
Right.
So, anyways, yeah, they go on to their Stillwater Regional, perform, at least against Nebraska, perform pretty well.
I mean, and going up against Oklahoma State in that game, and after beating Nebraska the first time, like Wichita State would have been the underdog going in that game anyway. So to expect them to pull out the win against a really tough Oklahoma State team, like it would have been really cool. Everybody loves a good underdog story, but Oklahoma State they're just better, honestly.
Yeah.
They end up beating Wichita State that game 6-0. So you can't really fault Wichita. I mean, you can, but like they're just overmatched from a talent standpoint, and I don't know a whole lot that they. I don't feel like there was a whole lot else that they probably could have done in that game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that statement for sure. I mean, especially after Nebraska, you've got the win, probably riding a little bit of a high, like ready to go, and Oklahoma State's just going to come out and do what Oklahoma State does, and it's just going to shoot down your enthusiastic mood, basically. That's how
Right.
I feel. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they could have been a little bit more competitive because you look at how Nebraska played Oklahoma State in the championship or in the final of that regional, and they only lost 5-2. So you would think that Wichita State could have gotten a run or two across and made it a little bit closer of a game, but in the grand scheme of things, Oklahoma State was just a better ball club. There wasn't much else you could have asked Wichita State to do in that regional. So going 1-2 as a smaller program and putting up 44 wins, like a pretty impressive year for them. Even though they laid an egg in the conference tournament, I'd say they still had a pretty successful year. Much to build upon going into this season.
absolutely.
And Central Florida goes 1-2 down in Tallahassee in Florida State's regional. Again, like you're competing against one of the best teams in the country.
Yeah. And
And
your other team you competed against was at their absolute peak of their season. They were playing against South Carolina.
yeah,
And
yeah,
South Carolina was at their peak. They were rocking and rolling.
yeah.
And
They hit South Carolina got hot at the right time, and they went on a tear and almost pulled that regional out. But yeah, I mean, to say you expect more out of UCF, I feel like that's a little bit of a stretch when they're having to play a team like Florida State. But I don't think it's too far fetched considering how well that program has performed over the last, 5-6 years. Like they've been pretty solid. And I mean, to see them go up against like game one, they play South Carolina and they beat them 6-1, and then they play Florida State and they lose 5-1. Like you kind of Florida State is extremely good, but Central Florida is just as good. I mean, they're perfectly capable of beating Florida State. So to see them lose that game the way they did, I mean, it's still a relatively close ball game, but 4 runs is fairly hard to come by when you're going up against a Catherine Sandercock and oh man, Mac Leonard. Like it's what?
right. No, I'm there. Lost me for a second. I'm there. I'm there.
4 runs are hard to come by against good pitching.
Well,
That's
another
what I
thing
was
too,
trying.
though, if you go and look at the what's it called, box score, you pull up the
Yeah.
box score. 4 runs, yes, hard to come by, but they out hit Florida State 9 to
You got.
4.
Oh my gosh, I know that feeling all too well.
Yeah, they put up 9 hits. Florida State only had 4 hits. So stellar job for the pitching staff for UCF. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. How many
But
errors?
that's what I was about to say. UCF turned around and gave 2 errors. I don't know if those errors were, runners both in scoring position or just where runners were
Right.
and how much it truly
Right.
cost them. But
But I mean, you got to imagine like Florida State's they got some girls that have wheels, and you let uh oh man, you let who's their center fielder?
their center fielder is I don't
No,
know how to
that's
say her
Johnny.
first
That's
name.
that's that's Johnny Kerr. That's not what I'm talking
Yes.
about. Devin Flaherty. You let a
Second baseman.
yeah, you let a Devin Flaherty on base because you boot a ball. She's gonna turn it into a run.
Yeah.
I mean, she swiped like 25 bags last year or something like that.
A significant,
Like,
significant amount.
like
Yeah,
you
you can't
and
when
and
you're
and
playing.
and and those errors they don't take into account walks. So if if you're just looking at the box score, you don't get the full picture as to how well the pitchers perform. But if you walk a Devin Flaherty or a Johnny Kerr, like they're gonna make you pay for it. They're gonna get themselves in the scoring position. And then say you have Devin Flaherty who just walked and then she's still second, and then there's a ground ball and ground ball to second baseman boots it. Now you got to run her on first and third. Or if she boots it and it goes into the outfield, Devin Flaherty scores.
Right. And that's a freebie that you basically just let her just trot the bases on you.
Right.
You could have
So
easily just put up a run. So
yeah. So I mean, kind of disappointed to UCF had all the talent last year to compete with Florida State and to take that regional, and for them to just shoot themselves in the foot and lose that game and then just kind of lay down against South
they,
Carolina.
yeah, absolutely. You turn around, you beat South Carolina the first time, and you turn around, you
And
take
beat them handily too.
yeah,
Like 6-1 is I mean, it's not a run rule, but I mean
it's a job well done
that's
for
a
sure.
yeah, definitely. But
But
yeah,
you turn
you turn around and
around,
play them the second time and
and
just
they just they do what a good team does, and it's like, yeah, we're not letting y'all do that ever again. And they
yeah.
just South Carolina just smacked them. I mean, 10-1. That's tough.
Yeah. For the last game of your season to go out 10-1, that's got to be a pretty painful experience.
Yeah, but
But yeah, then we move on. South Florida and Tulsa don't make the NCAA tournament, which is not unexpected. Definitely for Tulsa, they weren't even a 500 ball club. Um, South Florida, I can't say that I'm surprised that they didn't make the NCAA tournament, but when you look at their record and you compare it to some other schools' records in the Power Five, it's the same.
right.
And in some cases, it's better. But I mean, it's
I don't know. I mean,
frustrating for a South Florida team that put up a decent year, but that's just how how the cookie crumbles right now for the group of five. If they don't put up big numbers, they get the short end of the stick.
right. And you look at their season, again, not a horrible season.
Yeah.
Room for improvement for sure. But you look at their season and they obviously they play UCF closer towards the end of the season, whatever. Those 3 games against UCF, again, super strong team in Central Florida, they lose by 2 runs. Well, they lost one by 1 run. 8 innings, 1 run ball game, they lost. So they lose those 3, whatever. But then, so after you compete super hard, probably dogfight all weekend on that, you turn around and you have Memphis, Memphis got some work to do. But then you turn around and you play Houston. So, Houston, another team that's not that strong in their conference, and you turn around and play them and you lose to them in 9 innings. But then you turn around, beat them in 5. So now you've got your momentum going in, and then you turn around and got to play UCF again. Again, 3 games, lose 1-2, lose like 1-3, 0-2, something like that, 2 runs. You know you can compete with them. You know that you have the talent that you need to beat them. But my question is, where or when, I guess, were those players going to find it within themselves to just be like, all right, we're not losing to UCF 4 times. 4 times.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the better question is, when are we going to stop feeling? When are we're going to stop being okay with losing games against teams that are inferior to us?
Right.
Like, if you can compete with Central Florida, what business do you have losing to Houston and Memphis? Well, they didn't lose to Memphis, right?
No. They beat Memphis. They shut them out.
They swept the series. Okay, but I mean, Houston, like, you have no business losing to Houston if you have the talent to compete with a Central Florida.
Yeah.
What are you doing dropping any games to Houston? And then, I mean, if we take a look at their out of conference schedule, obviously that plays a factor as to, the ultimate decision to put them in the tournament or not. And if their out of conference schedule was not extremely tough, but they were still dropping games left and right, I mean, I understand the decision to not put them in the tournament. But at the same time, when you look at some other teams that we're going to get into later on in this list that made the tournament, and you're like, why would you not put South Florida in this tournament? Kind of it's
just the way the tournament's structured. I feel like it's just
and I mean, I understand the structure. So it's trying to be inclusive of almost every single conference out there. I mean, pretty much every conference out there, but
right.
I don't know. I don't know. We'll get into it a little bit later, because with some of the teams that made the tournament, even Tulsa has an argument as to why they didn't make the tournament. Well, let's move on. Let's get into Conference USA. So during the regular season, Charlotte, the old 49ers, right? Yeah, I think I know they're the Niners. I don't know if it's the 49ers. Maybe getting my NFL stuff.
No, you're right. 49ers.
It's 49ers? That's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know why I'm second guessing myself here. All right. So the old 49ers, they go 35-23 in the year. They 16-7 in conference. They get upset by MTSU in the conference semis, which MTSU, we've talked about them earlier on the previous episode. They almost upset Alabama in the Tuscaloosa regional. So MTSU, no joke. Not they're no one to take lightly. They're a really solid ball club. So, and I mean, when you look at MTSU's overall record, they had a much better record than Charlotte did. It just so happened that within conference they didn't perform as well.
Which again irks me. We talked about it, I think, when we talked about the Power Five, about because we talked about Bama and how it was an upset from Bama. It's the same thing for me here. Like, I get it. Conference records very different here. MTSU's not as strong. Yeah. But MTSU overall, I feel like, using the word upset, I expect it to be like a team way down here.
Right.
A team way up at the top,
a true underdog.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, like, the question, it still begs the question, same as Central Florida, or not Central Florida, South Florida, same as South Florida. Like MTSU, you put up a 40+ win season. What are you doing losing games in your conference?
Right.
Like you have no business not being the 1 or 2 seed in your conference every year.
Yeah, because they're a competitive team each year, yet their conference play doesn't show that.
Yeah. But yeah, Charlotte gets upset by MTSU. We'll talk more about MTSU in a little bit. UAB goes 29-25 on the year. That's not impressive at all. Somehow managed to finish as the 2 seed, going 16-8 in conference. So I mean, I guess good for them getting hot at the right point in the season when they start conference play. They as the 2 seed get upset by North Texas, who has the same conference record as they do and a better overall record. So to say that they really got upset that's not true. North Texas was a better ball club in my opinion. So North Texas as the 3 seed, they play UAB as the 2 seed, and North Texas being the better ball club, they do what they're supposed to do, and they beat UAB to advance to the next round. But there again, they get upset by an MTSU who in conference play was not very good. Right, not very good. North Texas theoretically should have beaten MTSU, but again, MTSU, the better overall not conference, the better overall record, probably the better team. So MTSU does what they're supposed to do, and they advance to the conference championship. Then you have FAU, who comes in as the 4 seed for a conference tournament. They go 35-20 on the year with a 15-9 conference record. Again, like all 4 of these teams have pretty solid conference records.
Right.
And outside of UAB, they don't have bad overall records either. Not the strongest that we've seen, but not bad by any means. FAU loses to Charlotte early in the conference tournament. They get put out pretty early. Yeah,
I think the thing about this conference is just that it doesn't necessarily. It's not that it doesn't make sense, but it also doesn't make sense that UAB can go in their conference play and their strength of schedule just might have been out the wazoo difficult. But you go in your conference, you're 16-8, solid team, but your overall record is barely riding over 500, and then you look at MTSU again. You just compare conference. It's like, and MTSU's 13-10, UAB's 16-8, much better team. Immediately is a thought, but then one team puts up 40+ wins, one team barely makes it over 500. And so this conference to me just doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine MTSU maybe had a couple of like cupcake games early on. But I feel like they played some pretty stiff competition early in the season too, outside of conference play. That really kind of prepared them for the tournament, but I don't know how that didn't translate to conference play specifically.
Yeah, that one's, I don't know.
That
one's not making sense to me.
Yeah, because then as MTSU goes on into the postseason and they go to that Tuscaloosa regional, like I said, they gave Alabama a run for their money. They took it to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean I'm hesitant to say they got hot at the right time because they didn't. You don't get hot at the right time putting up 40 wins. you were good all year.
Yeah,
So
you
that
just
begs a
go ahead.
like it's just kind of yeah, like you said, Conference USA is just kind of it just kind of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense as far as what the end results were for the conference. Um, but obviously MTSU a solid ball club. They're going to win the conference championship coming out of the tournament as what the 5th or 6th seed.
Not at the top. I know that.
Yeah. But again, I mean they're a 40+ win team, so not really unexpected. They just kind of I'm sure it had to be something with injuries last year when they got to conference play that really hurt them. And then by the time they got to the conference tournament, they were 100% healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if you go and look throughout their regular season, it it doesn't seem like they had the record they had as far as conference play goes. But then you look and it's like, oh, a couple losses to Charlotte, and then a couple losses. I think they lost two to FAU. Like they just lost a couple that not necessarily that you would think they would. And then,
Yeah.
they get into conference play and lost their second game of conference play. So they lose their second game. Now you got to win out, which obviously they turned around and did. But I mean, they had to turn around and win 4 games.
Yeah.
And the team that gave them their first loss of obviously North Texas is a team that they were playing 12 inning conference championship game. Win 3-2. What a fight.
Yeah. Definitely. That's why that's a super long game. That reminds me of the game that we played last year at Cleveland Central.
Oh my god. No reason.
Oh, what was the final score of that game? Like 16-15 or something like
Yeah,
that.
and it should have literally been 16-2.
Yeah, on like a Tuesday night, 4-hour game, 2 hours away for high school softball. Like, bro, what are we doing? That
That's
was poor
probably the head
schedule.
coach's
That was
schedule.
yeah, poor scheduling on my part. But jeez,
Yeah.
oh man, never again, never again. Uh,
Well, obviously.
oh man, but I mean, for MTSU to drop a couple games to Charlotte during the regular season is not surprising because Charlotte they go on in the postseason. They go to the Durham regional and they take it to Duke. Duke is a really solid program, and Charlotte just barely loses to Duke in the finals. I think they ended up no they okay, so they went 2-2 in the Durham regional and they get to the finals and they lose that first game to Duke in the finals. But I think it
Mm-hmm.
was a pretty close one. I don't think it was like a blowout or anything. I'm pretty sure they took it to Duke and gave Duke everything they wanted. Yeah, so Charlotte took it to Duke in that Durham regional and make it to finals, face off against Duke, who was the 6th seed in the nation at the time. No, eight. Sorry, they were 8th in the nation at the time. Charlotte unranked, and Duke squeaks by them with a 4-2 win. So, like, for NTSU to drop a couple games to Charlotte is not surprising at all. Charlotte was obviously a very solid ball club. But, I mean, North Texas, virtually the same record as Charlotte. So, again, you expect North Texas to be just as good. But what so MTSU they win the conference championship, so they get a bid. They get an
Automatic
automatic
bid.
bid into NCAA tournament. Charlotte wins regular season, they get an automatic bid. Um, MTSU goes to Tuscaloosa. We talked about it a million times already. They go 3-2 in Tuscaloosa. Face Alabama in the finals, take the first game after battling through the losers bracket, right? Or am I wrong?
I think you're right because
Did
so they get
Alabama go through the losers bracket?
no.
Surely not.
No. You're right. MTSU is going through the
Yeah.
losers
Okay.
bracket
Okay.
because
Okay.
they lost the first time they played Alabama.
Yeah. No. Yes. You're right.
Yes.
And they got stomped the
Yeah.
first time. They lost 12-5. So they beat Central Arkansas 8-0 the first game. They go on to face Alabama, get stomped in the ground. They face Central Arkansas again, squeak by with a 3-0 win. Then they face Alabama. Oh my gosh.
I feel like you might need some water over there. Anyways, they go on to face Alabama after they win their 3-0 game against Central Arkansas. Face Alabama and just come out firing. I think their leadoff batter, I don't remember her name. I want to say her last name's Eccles. She had one heck of a game, and their left fielder did too. Putting balls where people weren't, which is tough to do against Alabama. Put up a W, 4-1. Then they got to turn around and play Alabama again. And if it isn't for the old Tennessee volunteer transfer to Alabama, that does it for him. Allie Shipman hits the solo bomb and knocks MTSU out.
Yeah. So MTSU, really solid year last year. Honestly, should have beaten Alabama in the regionals. Should have made it out of there. Alabama did not hit well at all last year. At this point, Montana Fouts is not 100%. To say that you expect MTSU to beat Alabama, that's unrealistic. But had they done it, would not have been a surprise.
I liked the matchup. I liked it a lot. Not obviously not the first time. Well, maybe not obviously, but not the first time MTSU and Alabama have faced each other. And it was the first time, I believe it was the first time MTSU had beaten Alabama. That 4-1 game. I think that was the first time that MTSU's beaten Alabama. And they put up a fight the next day. I mean, a 0-1 loss isn't anything to be beating yourself up over, for sure.
Right, yeah. Those are the ones that hurt the worst.
Although I was about to say, although they do sting a little bit more than normal.
Yeah.
But
when you get blown out, you can it's a gradual, just like, dang, this is over. But when you're down to the wire, that last inning, that last pitch, last strike, that last ground ball, like that's a tough way to go out. But like I say, you go 3-2 in a Tuscaloosa regional against a really SEC, just a powerhouse in general, but a SEC powerhouse in Alabama, and you take a game from them and put up a dogfight for that last one. A ton to build on this year. Same thing with Charlotte. Ton to build on.
I want to see MTSU get right back at it. I want them to jump out, go right back, and I want to see them match up. I don't even care if it's just Alabama. I want them to get a little SEC action, and I want them to put somebody in, not Tennessee, but I want them to put somebody in their place.
My vote is Tennessee. My vote is definitely put Tennessee in their place. Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever. Just exciting to see a hometown team. That's a tongue twister for sure. Just rivalry go all in.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Charlotte take it to Duke and UNC, and I mean, I doubt that they're going to venture all the way down to Tallahassee to play Florida State. But I mean, I wouldn't mind watching Charlotte beat up on some ACC teams. Clemson's not far from them. South Carolina's not far from them. So, I mean, I would definitely like to see Charlotte just jump right back into the swing of things and just go on a tear. But I mean, Same thing with North Texas, FAU. Like they had really good years last year too. I mean, not I don't really good is a little bit of a stretch, but like they had really solid years, um, and were clearly just as good as Charlotte and MTSU, seeing as how they all competed very similarly with each other. Um,
Which I find it kind of
to
interesting. North Texas doesn't get the bid to the NCAA tournament.
right, I understand UAB because UAB was barely above 500 overall, but I mean North Texas goes 35-22, makes it to their conference championship, gets upset by a 40-plus win team, and they don't make it to the
NCAA
tournament.
is like, yeah, no, you're not getting in.
Yeah, I mean they have one less win than Charlotte. I mean, not one less win, one less loss than Charlotte does.
Yeah.
So technically, they have a better overall record. I mean, you look at Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic has 3 less losses overall than Charlotte does, and they don't make the tournament. Like, and Florida Atlantic doesn't play a UAB to start the tournament. They go straight up against Charlotte.
Yeah.
Who we've already established as a really solid program. And somebody's got to lose that game. So it just happens to be FAU.
Yeah. I want to see I want to see the group of 5 teams more for sure in the postseason, but specifically Conference USA, Charlotte, and obviously MTSU. That's something I look forward to for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, even with like North Texas and Florida Atlantic, like you got
Wouldn't be
North
opposed to
Texas.
it.
I mean, could you imagine North Texas beating up on Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Texas in the coming years?
Oh, North Texas beating up on Texas would be awesome. It would
Yeah, I
just
mean,
it's just
I
fun to
don't think,
watch.
yeah, I don't think North Texas is ever going to beat up on Oklahoma because nobody beats up on Oklahoma. But I think there's tons of talent in that area, in the Denton, Texas area. That's
Mm-hmm.
obviously North Texas. Um, but there's a ton of talent in that area and just throughout the state of Texas and then just across the border in Oklahoma. Like there's all kinds of talent in the area that North Texas can pull. And like if we were just talking about this coming season, little old Conference USA North Texas beating up on now SEC Texas and Oklahoma. I don't think they're going to beat Oklahoma. I don't think anybody's going to beat Oklahoma really. Um, but could you imagine? Could you imagine North Texas handing Oklahoma their first loss of the year?
That would be pretty awesome.
That would be
That would be
that would be so sweet. Not that I'm rooting for Oklahoma to do poorly, but it is just it's about time.
so. So I'm looking at it now. I went back to North Texas's North Texas,
Go
whatever.
with it.
Yeah, whatever. I went back to last year's schedule for them. They did play Texas. They missed it by just a couple runs. They only lost 2-4, so they're coming.
Yeah. They're
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 on them.
they're coming in hot this year.
Yeah, that'll
And
be.
I think a couple months ago I read something about their coach and how he was like he was a young guy and this I don't know how long he had been coaching at North Texas, but it was something about him just like really developing and pushing this program forward. So I mean I would not be surprised to see North Texas upset some folks and steal some games from some teams that they're probably not supposed to be in the eyes of most college softball analysts.
Yeah, that would be something to watch for sure.
So Conference USA, pretty good conference to keep your eye on. uh, this coming season. You could look at the American as well. Keep your eye on them for Wichita State and Central Florida. I expect them to do just as well. But I mean, you're talking about Conference USA where like they have at least 4 teams in their conference that have an opportunity to be something special.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, keep your eyes peeled for Conference USA to do some damage this year. So we transition over into the MAC. You got Miami, Ohio, finishing at the top of the pack, going 40-20 on the year with a 21-8 conference record. That's pretty solid.
Strong record right there.
Yeah, strong efforts from the Red Hawks on that one. They win their conference tournament as they should. When they face off with the Ohio Bobcats, who finished the year 31-22 with a 20-9 record. So I guess their out of conference schedule is pretty tough.
Yeah,
to rack up 20 conference wins, and only walk away with 31 on the year. But yeah, Ohio they finished runner up in the conference tournament. Central Michigan finishes in a fairly close third place at 29-26 on the year, which is, I mean, that's not anything to write home about. They go 18-11 in conference, which is pretty solid. They lose to Ohio in the conference semis, and then you got Ball State finishes 27-26 and 17-12 in conference, and they go 0-2 in the conference tournament. I mean, it really looks like if we're comparing the MAC to Conference USA and the American, I mean, it really looks like their out of conference schedule is just drastically and significantly tougher than their conference schedule.
I mean, it's got to be because it's such a big difference between what they look like in conference play versus out of it. I mean, I'm looking at Miami, and obviously 40+ win, but I mean, even if you check out their schedule, they played Oklahoma, they played let's see, they played Stanford. I mean, they played other really strong teams. Played Charlotte, South Carolina.
Yeah.
So I mean, how
did they do against those teams?
Let's see. Oklahoma, not swell.
Right.
Not swell. Yeah. 1-13 loss on that one. So, also not swell against Stanford. 2 5-inning games for that. And then, they competed with Charlotte and competed with South Carolina. Charlotte, they lost 3-5. South Carolina, they only lost 4-5. So, I mean,
okay. And I mean, we look at Miami and how they did in the postseason. They go to Evanston, the Evanston regional. That's Northwestern's regional, and they go 2-2 in that regional, and they lose to Northwestern in the final. So like they did really well outside of their conference as well when they got into the NCAA tournament and went to regionals. Miami aside, like Miami put up 40 wins, so I would say that they're probably a pretty solid team despite the strength of their conference. But you look at the 3 teams behind them, and the 3 teams behind them are racking up conference wins left and right. But then you look at their overall record, and they only have like a handful more wins than their conference wins. And so, I mean, that just tells me that the conference as a whole is just not very strong. And
then you get outside of it, and
they really can't compete outside of that conference, with the exception of Miami.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't expect anybody else to really make any leaps forward coming out of this conference to steal the spotlight from Miami. I'd imagine Miami goes on to win the conference again this year, and then makes the NCAA tournament for the second straight year. I I just don't see a lot coming out of this conference.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one. I mean, if you look at, let's just skip on right down to their postseason. Obviously, Miami's the only one to advance out of out of conference, and they make it again to the Northwestern Regional, do their 2-2 job there. But in doing so, they're obviously their second loss came from Northwestern. Really
Mhm.
strong Northwestern team, 4-5 loss.
Right. Yeah.
So super
Yeah.
competitive there. The other loss came from Kentucky, in which they lost 1-9 in 6 innings, and they turn around and win 9-0 in 5 innings the next time they play them. So I mean, other than Miami to me in this conference, I mean Miami's putting up a strong fight most games, but I mean I'm not putting the other three or the other teams really for this conference just up there and hyping them. I mean, I hyped Conference USA up. I'm hyping them up all day long.
Yeah.
I'm not finding a
Same.
team. I'm not finding a team here that I don't know. Outside of conference play is not as strong as other conferences at this level.
Yeah. I will say Ball State got a new head coach this year, and she brought in some her preferred staff.
Yeah.
Um,
So it could be a
but
turnaround. Could have a turnaround
it
there.
could be, but I feel like, especially with it being first year, and
It takes a couple years to rebuild a program
well, not so much
or
that,
build on.
especially with the transfer portal now, like I could see an immediate turnaround. I mean, you look at football and how programs have turned around this year from last year, like Colorado, for instance, going 1-10 last year, and now they've already got 4 wins on the season. I mean, Deion Sanders made use of the transfer portal to,
Yeah. Pull his
I don't
people
want
with
to
him.
say, yeah, I don't want to say he used the transfer portal to completely turn that program around, but he's done a really good job thus far. Um, but so that could be a similar situation with Ball State. But in saying that and giving that comparison with Ball State to Colorado's football program, I feel like it would be a similar turnaround where, yes, Ball State gets better. They win more games, win more conference games, but outside of conference, they're still the same Ball State. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, yeah, I totally agree with you.
So instead of, granted, right here, there's not only 4 teams in the MAC, so Ball State's not at the bottom of the totem pole here, but I don't necessarily see them climbing the ladder and jumping Miami or even Ohio. I mean, I think maybe they could get there. I mean, it's just another 3 wins,
Yeah.
uh, but I don't necessarily think just in a year time span, Ball State becomes the powerhouse of the MAC and goes to the NCAA tournament.
No, it's for sure going to take a couple, but I mean, I feel like they could at least pull out. I mean, Central Michigan's got them beat by 2 wins. They can at least pull out a third place finish, regular season
Yeah,
wise. Regular season wise, could pull out a third place finish, and then that just makes the conference tournament just a little bit different for them. So again,
yeah,
I still think Miami's pulling out of this conference tournament, the conference champs again. But
yeah, yeah. But I mean, our opinions of that could change the more we look into this conference and who else coming back and whatnot in future episodes. Um, but we got the Mountain West up next. You got Boise State finishes on top in the regular season with a 16-5 conference record, 32-17 overall. Um, they get upset by San Jose State who finished under 500, both overall and in conference.
Yeah.
Like
Boise State, strong conference, strong overall record, and then not necessarily pulling a UCLA, but
they pulled a UCLA.
okay. I'll let you say it. All right.
I mean, they had. Granted, this is something that I did notice when I was writing this out. Mountain West, or more specifically Boise State, it really looks like they didn't play as many games as what most teams play. I mean, 32-17, like that's still 50 games, 49 games.
49. Yeah.
49. So, I mean, that's still a fair amount of games, but I feel like most teams play an additional 3 to 5 more games during the regular season. But either way, it doesn't really matter. It was just something that I noticed. But Boise State pulls the UCLA. They get upset by a team they had no business losing to in San Jose State. You get San Diego State finishing second in the regular season. They go 39-17 on the year. So they had more overall wins than Boise State and only one more loss than Boise State with a 16-6 conference record, which is weird to me because 16-5 is 21, 16-6 is 22.
Yeah, well, if you look at the next two, it's the same way.
Yeah, you're right.
One of them's got 23.
Yeah. I don't understand how that works. Like, I understand rainouts and stuff happen, but how do conference games just not get made up?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either. I mean, how do you? Granted, now it's a 5-game win difference here for the 16-5, 16-6 compared to the 11-10 and 11-12. But how do you have one team that's playing 2 less conference games?
Yeah, I don't understand the conference discrepancies here. Like, I don't. If you know, like, inclement weather's coming in, you
Just
play a
move the
doubleheader.
game.
Yeah, you play a doubleheader, you move the game, and now I get it. Like, these are student athletes we're talking about, so like to a certain point, like you got to get kids back to school and get them back on campus and get them in class. So I get that, but at the same time, like,
What are we doing?
yeah. Like, what are we doing? You got to get those midweek games out of there and get these conference games finished up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Mountain West is doing its own thing, I guess. So San Diego State, like we said, finished second during the regular season. They go on to win the conference tournament, where they played San Jose State, who upset Boise State, had no business being there in the first place. But Colorado State finishes third in the conference, 31-21 on the year, with an 11-10 conference record. They get upset by Nevada. How, I don't know.
I feel like it's Nevada.
I've heard both. I've always said Nevada. I had a buddy who was from Nevada. He said Nevada, and he said he couldn't stand when people said Nevada. So
Okay,
I'm
well,
gonna go ahead and
I
stick
feel
with.
like it might be Nevada actually. So not Nevada anymore. We'll just roll with it. Nevada.
But yeah, I mean, just
I don't like this conference. I'm not even gonna front.
yeah. I'm not in. Yeah, I don't. I'm with you. I don't like it either.
Well, like we're missing. There's a team missing here. Like, well, how do we 16-5, 16-6, and then it's like whether everybody else is barely making it.
if you notice here, though, what's odd that is not what we've seen with the other conferences, the other group of 5 conferences specifically. The Mountain West did not get an automatic bid for the regular season winner.
No, I noticed that. What's also
So
weird is just that their regular season winner didn't go to their conference tournament, but whatever, or their conference championship. But that's on them.
yeah, I mean,
So
yeah. I mean, Wichita State did the same thing though. So,
yeah, true.
but Wichita State still made the conference tournament or the NCAA tournament.
Okay, so maybe our thought process of regular season winner gets a bid is just wrong.
It might be, or it may be that um, that opportunity is only given to the American Athletic Conference and Conference USA.
Could be. I don't know.
Because if we're looking at Conference USA and we're saying only the conference tournament winner goes or gets the automatic bid, how then does a 35-23 Charlotte get an at-large bid over a North Texas or a Florida Atlantic or a South Florida? You know?
Yeah, I
I
know.
don't know.
I don't know the answer.
I don't either. But the Mountain West, nevertheless, not super impressive. San Diego State had a pretty good run. They win their conference tournament. They go to the LA regional where UCLA decided to just not play. And San Diego State goes 3-0 and advances. And
Still does pretty well in the supers.
yeah, they face Utah in the supers. They take a game and ultimately drop 2-1, and Utah advances. Um, a really good season for the San Diego State Aztecs. Can't really ask that they do a whole lot more. Um, just continue to try to build upon that this year. I would love to see them continue to build upon it and beat up on UCLA again. I think that would be sweet.
Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty over here. Um, no, I think, well, for one, beating up on UCLA, a little bit of a sore subject. I like UCLA. I just don't like how they decided they weren't going to play at the end of their season.
All right, yeah. I mean,
But
I don't have necessarily anything against UCLA. I don't like Los Angeles, the city. Um, it's way too overcrowded. But by default, UCLA being in Los Angeles, not a fan. I don't despise them, just not a fan. So San Diego State beating up on UCLA, I think that would be pretty cool. But I also, them being a smaller school and a smaller conference, I'm just a sucker for an underdog story. That's what it boils down to. Just a
just always
sucker.
root for the underdog.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a good old American boy who loves a good underdog story. Uh, yeah, I'm here for it. San Diego State, let's do it. Do it big this year. Let's go.
We'll see.
All right, so moving on into the Sun Belt.
Are we?
So, yeah, we're moving into the Sun Belt. Ashley needs to start diddling away on her fingers real quick. As it looks like in our show notes, Robbie forgot to add a bunch of information about each one of these teams. But I do know that this is the order that they finished in. Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns finished first in regular season. South Alabama finishes second. Marshall finishes third. Excuse me. And Troy finishes fourth. I don't know how. Let's see.
Don't pull up Louisiana. I got Louisiana going.
Okay.
Oh, Raging Cajuns.
Yeah,
Raging
so
Cajun.
I don't know what I was doing in this particular part of the show notes. It looks like I was drunk. Because Louisiana most definitely made the NCAA tournament. They go to LSU's regional, they go to the Baton Rouge regional, and they advance to supers. So I don't know what I was doing when I started typing this part out.
Maybe you just got so distracted by their stellar season and just forgot.
Maybe either that or I was dealing with some other nonsense.
Also a possibility for sure. Let's see. I've got Louisiana pulled up. Let's just go through real quick on their season, not recap, but just finish, I guess, is what I'm looking for. I don't know. They end up finishing their season not 40 wins, 50 wins. 50 wins.
Yeah.
They go 50 and 16 overall. Awesome job. 22 and 2 in conference. So yeah, they absolutely deserve to make it all the way through the postseason that they did. And they get down and just get down to the old Baton Rouge. And
so before we get into their regional play, I mean, even though I've kind of already talked about it, so they finished the regular season with 50 wins. They're 22 and 2 in conference. They're the number one seed going into the conference tournament. South Alabama finishes 20 and 4 in conference, so that's pretty respectable as well. They're 39 and 14 on the year, which isn't bad at all. Marshall finishes third in conference at 17 and 5 with a conference record, 17 and 5, 45 and 10 overall. So Marshall, pretty solid year as well. Just all around, really solid year. Troy, this is where it starts to get a little bit iffy for me. So Troy goes 14, 9, and 1 in conference play. Not terrible. the infamous tie. Not terrible, but not great. They're 33, 19, and 1 on the year. Again, not terrible, but not great. Texas State, very similar record. They're 13, 9, and 1 in conference play. And then 35, 25, and 1 in conference or overall. But Texas State makes the NCAA tournament. South Alabama, Marshall, and Troy all get left out. So if the Raging Cajuns finished first in regular season and they had 50 wins overall, how then does Texas State make the NCAA tournament? They had to have won the conference tournament, right?
Or it was one of those, put the names in the hat, cover your eyes, whatever name we draw up, Texas State, you're it. They had to. I mean, they had to have. No, they didn't win the conference tournament. This doesn't make any sense.
I'm taking a gander.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I'm finding that they did not win, but maybe I'm looking at the wrong area.
If mine would ever load, I could tell you.
I was
It's
indeed
not
looking
loading.
at the wrong area. I'm looking at a totally different team. So just Texas State. What an interesting logo when you pull up the website. I don't interesting little saying there.
This makes no sense whatsoever. The 2023 Sun Belt Softball Championship. Louisiana was the 1 seed. Just like we said, Texas State was the 5 seed. Texas State loses to Louisiana in the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
And the Raging Cajuns and the old Thundering Herd face off in the championship. And the Raging Cajuns win. So how in the world does Texas State get into the NCAA region?
They're definitely rocking and rolling with the hat method. That's all I gotta say. I mean that there's no. It's not that they have no business being there because they have business being there. They're a solid team, whatever.
I
But
mean, not more
you
so
got
than
booted and
Marshall.
yeah, exactly. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. I am beyond perplexed at this point.
Yeah, I have no answer for this. What are we doing, NCAA? What are we doing? What?
I, I'm at a loss for words on this one. This is probably why I didn't finish typing out my notes like I was supposed to.
You got sent into such a shock, and you were just like, "Oh my god!" It just froze because that's about how my brain feels right now. Just what kind of sense does it make to not take Marshall, but to push Texas State on through? It doesn't make sense. That's the answer. That doesn't make sense.
Oh man.
Ooh, that's tough.
The next 2 teams that we're going to mention from the ASUN conference, Central Arkansas and Liberty, both 40-plus win teams. So Central Arkansas won the conference tournament for the Atlantic Sun. Liberty gets an at-large bid. Both 40-plus win teams. And, I mean, honestly, Liberty is who ended up putting UCLA out, are they not?
They are indeed.
Yeah. Win 1 for Jesus Christ.
Win 2 is Grand Canyon.
Right. Yeah, so these 2 teams specifically, Central Arkansas had a pitcher last year who was throwing 70 miles an hour, just slinging it in there. Unfortunately for Central Arkansas, she has since transferred to the good old Roll Tide University, Alabama.
For those of you that can't see me, I was giving a thumbs down, just so you know. Roll Tide.
It's not. I mean, it's really not my fault. I mean, I kind of married into it. So,
Well, I married into Mississippi State, and you don't see me cheering for Mississippi State.
who cheers for Mississippi State? Honestly,
Probably half of the state of Mississippi, if I had to guess.
I mean, yeah, probably, but what do they have to cheer about?
Well, they did win.
And then finished in last place. So, again, I ask, what do they have to cheer about?
Anyways.
Yeah, so I mean, with Central Arkansas and Liberty, like they were 2 teams that deserved to be there. and they proved that they deserve to be there because they performed pretty well. Again, Liberty putting UCLA out and making it to the final, the regional finals against San Diego State, and giving San Diego State a run for their money, only losing that game 6-3. Where is Central Arkansas? They are on the other side. So Central Arkansas goes. Thank you. In Conway, Arkansas, actually. Central Arkansas goes to the Tuscaloosa Regional. That's right, where they faced off with a really good Middle Tennessee State team. And I'm trying not to cough, dog. You could take over if you want.
No, I was just making sure you weren't going to joke or something.
Just hanging out over there.
Oh,
I'm trying not to die. You're just hanging out. Done run out of water.
Done run out of water? You're
Yeah,
right. You are from Mississippi.
I've done run out of water, boy.
Oh, me too. It's okay. Whatever.
Yeah. So and Central Arkansas ends up playing MTSU twice in that regional. MTSU, a really good team. They handle Central Arkansas pretty well, put them out. But that's not to say Central Arkansas didn't walk away with at least one win. They beat Long Island University, and they beat them into the freaking ground, 15-0 in their first elimination bracket game. So
that's tough.
Yeah. But like I said, Central Arkansas and Liberty both extremely deserving of being in the NCAA tournament. They performed really well. Would not be surprised to see them end up there again. Although there's a caveat to Central Arkansas because they lost their ace to Alabama. So curious to see how that one plays out this year. Might not be for the better. You got the Big East. Seton Hall makes the NCAA tournament after winning their conference tournament. Another 40-plus win team. Definitely deserving of being in the NCAA tournament. They go to the Austin Regional, where they unfortunately go 0-2. They played Texas to start with. They dropped that game 8-0. You know, a really solid Texas team, kind of to be expected from a smaller mid-major school going up against a powerhouse, a softball powerhouse in Texas. But then they play this Texas State team in the elimination bracket who didn't even have no idea how they ended up even in the NCAA tournament, and they lose 4-3. So apparently Texas State was a little bit deserving of being there to have won at least one game. And they competed really well against Texas A&M as well. Texas State lost to Texas A&M 2-1 their first game, and then they win 4-3 against Seton Hall, and then they play Texas A&M again and only lose 4-2. So as infuriating as it is to see Texas State in the NCAA tournament, they didn't play poorly. But I feel like Marshall probably would have beaten Texas A&M. Just throwing that out there.
No, I'm feeling like Marshall is just simply going to have another stellar year and just prove that they were the ones that were supposed to be there. Because they were.
I don't know what they have to prove. I feel like they proved it.
They did
and the tournament committee was just like, nah. You guys can stay home. I don't know. Maybe they had some sanctions on them or something that kept them from competing in the playoffs.
Did
I
they
don't
just
know.
maybe no, they didn't just transfer divisions.
Mm-mm. No, Marshall's been a D1 school for a very long time.
Yeah. I don't know then. I don't know.
Now, I am pretty familiar with the Big South Conference. Covers the Carolinas. There's some pretty good ball out there. You got Campbell University or University. No, it's Campbell University.
Yeah.
They all fighting camels coming out of Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, baby. They make the NCAA tournament. Another 40-win team. They win their conference tournament. Let's check out which regional they went to. I think it was the Clemson regional. No,
I think you're right.
The Duke regional, the Durham regional. They go to the Durham regional. They lose to Charlotte 7-2. Charlotte was a really good team. And now when I say Charlotte was a really good team, they obviously took it to Duke and gave Duke everything they wanted in the finals. You expect a little bit more of a 40-win team in Campbell. Like a 7-2 score. That's not really a blowout. It's not a run rule, but it's not necessarily a competitive score either.
You expect like a two run ball game.
Yeah,
5-3,
like I said,
3-1.
right. You expect a little bit more out of a 40 plus win Campbell team. That being said, they go into the elimination bracket. They play George Mason. They beat George Mason to the ground 7-1. Then they play Charlotte again. This time, they do end up losing the game, but it's a 6-4 ball game. Much more respectable score. Definitely what you would expect out of a 40 plus win team, a small school. You expect them to just compete better than a 7-2 ball game or getting blown out or something like that. So I'd expect to see them kind of produce a similar season. I don't necessarily expect them to, win a regional, make it to supers or anything like that. That's not to say that they can't. Obviously, you put up 40 wins, like you got at least a little bit of talent. But they're always going to get put into a Durham tournament, a Clemson tournament, or a Durham regional, Clemson regional, or something like that. Or they're always going to end up having to take on the powerhouse. So they're going to, if they make regionals again this year, they're going to have to prove themselves once again. But then you have a team like Boston,
Dominant.
who goes 52-10 on the year and 17-1 in conference out of the Patriot League. They win their conference tournament. They deserve to be in the NCAA tournament. They won over 50 games. How do you not put them in the conference tournament? When we talk about how they did in the conference tournament, I don't know, or not the conference tournament, in the regionals. They won a game. They won a game. You know who they beat? They beat the worst team in the NCAA tournament, NC Central.
Oh, you can ask for better timing to bring up Boston.
Right. They start out and they play Virginia Tech and they lose 6-1. Then they go into the elimination bracket. They play NC Central and beat them 8-0. And then they end up having to face Virginia Tech again. This is in the Athens regional and Georgia's regional. They don't perform well against Virginia Tech in either game. The second game they get beat 9-0. And mind you, this is a 50 plus win team going up against Virginia Tech, who was like a 35 win team. So some of this has to do with the fact that Boston has a terrible conference. So if you take away
some of it, 52 wins, got to give them credit where credit's due. They're also in a tough regional. I mean, Athens, tough, but
I mean they are, but their 2 losses came from the same team.
A team that was not that stellar in where they were playing.
A team that was not very stellar in the ACC.
Right.
Correct. A Power 5 team that was not super great. However, a Power 5 team nonetheless.
Yeah.
So I have nothing against Boston making the NCAA tournament. They put up 52 wins. Like, you put up 52 wins, you deserve an opportunity to prove yourself in regionals. Anyway, Boston was deserving of being in the NCAA tournament. For sure, you put up 52 wins, you should be there. You get McNeese State out of the Southland Conference. They had 47 wins on the year. They definitely deserved a bid. I think they walked away with a win out of regionals.
I think you're right.
They went to Seattle and played in Washington's regional. They beat Minnesota twice. They went 3-2. They almost took the regional from Washington. So definitely no problem there with McNeese making the NCAA tournament. And then you got Grand Canyon down here from the WAC. We've mentioned them before. When second game for Jesus, they ultimately put out UCLA, which, good underdogs. Happened, it shouldn't have, but when you got Jesus on your side, win-win for him.